In this video, I mostly want to talk to the unfaithful spouses out there. Although this affects everybody, you're probably in a place wondering how you got here. Where did it all go wrong? I can't believe what I did looking back. There are so many questions you might be asking yourself and wondering how you got here. Self-deception is powerful, and it's very real. Most people agree that this is the most difficult deception to deal with. If you look at it defined, it involves convincing oneself of a truth so that one does not reveal any self-knowledge of the deception. So basically, you're taking anything that exists and creating it a truth, and then turning around and looking the other way so that you don't have any knowledge that it's not true. We will do whatever necessary to fulfill our selfish desires. If you look back, I think you'll see that in your past. I know I do. This means all things untrue can become true in our minds. We'll justify anything and everything to pursue what we want in the moment and in the long run. I've been there. I've seen what the outcomes of this looks like. At one point in my darkest days, as I look back, I actually saw my kids and my spouse as a burden and something in my way. They were nothing more than selfish stumbling blocks that I had to trip over. I would get angry at them and frustrated when they didn't let me get what I wanted when I wanted it. I was upset. And this was all the time. This wasn't just an occasional time. The side note to that is I went to church regularly. I appeared to have things together to other people. Behind the scenes, I was a mess, and I wasn't owning up to what was going on. My spouse knew something was wrong. I was always impatient and angry with them. My family never came first. And I was stuck in this pattern of self-deception. It keeps you stuck where you are, where you're caught. You'll find yourself continually saying things like, I can handle this, or I can stop doing this if I wanted to, or I might as well go ahead and keep doing this stuff because I'm already so deep. One of the big ones, a red flag, if you will, of self-deception would be that phrase, your spouse has caught you talking to someone and you throw this phrase out, we're just friends. If you say that, generally there's much more going on. One thing I learned is when an alcoholic or a drug addict or an addict of any kind hits bottom and looks back at how many times they justified quitting but never could have, they start to realize that there's always an excuse or a reason, and we don't stop doing what we're doing. We deceive ourselves. I believe all things selfish are justified by self-deception. If you go back to the earliest forms of what the Bible would talk about sin, it's deception, and they were deceived. And it's mostly rooted in fear. Fear of looking at something within ourselves, fear of something we've been doing, guilt or shame can be a part of it. All of the ways we can turn from what is truth and facing things and turning to things in a self-deceived way. And the only way to start to get a handle on self-deception, because you can't see it, you're justifying everything, you have to first be honest about it. And so today I hope you're hearing this message as maybe a first time. Until you own it, you can't get better. Just put it in your mind that possibly you're self-deceiving yourself. And second is to start to be aware of how you're using it to justify everything. Have the courage to ask those around you what they see in you. And not just once. Ask them maybe daily or weekly. And have the courage to sit there and hear their feedback. And that can be hard because they could tell you, I see you being impatient. I see you being too harsh. I see you being unforgiving. It could be many things that come back at you, but have the courage to hear it because that's a good sign to see how you're doing. Today, I hope you can get out of any self-deception that has entangled you. It might just be for a short time. It might be for your entire life. Be willing to step out and be honest that it's a very real problem, and have the courage to listen to those around you who have to live on the other side of you. That's a question we in recovery have to ask all the time. What's it like to live on the other side of me? So for you today, I hope you can ask that question. What is it like for your spouse, for your kids, for your friends, for your family to live on the other side of you? Down the road, I gained some clarity and appreciation. I started to realize the way I'd been treating people to justify everything I'd been doing. I was so self-deceived. I didn't think I had the problem. My wife would tell me I had something going on. I didn't believe her. There was clearly something going on in my life, and she saw it. One day down recovery, I was pushing my daughter on a swing at school, and I just remembered how I had been and how that would have been in the way for me. That would have been something that I just wouldn't have wanted to spend the time doing. And it was in that moment where I stopped, and one of those clarity moments where I realized how important that moment was for me and my daughter to spend some time together, and how much that meant to me now versus back then when I would have seen her as a burden. And so I was able to cherish the moment and also look back and be honest about who I was and what I'd been doing. So the positive outcome for me on that was that I was able to move through that self-deception into a world of clarity. It took some time. It may take some time for you. It does for everybody. But be willing to be honest about it and own it if you're dealing with it.